Well, Stoney, we heard the comments from the beat writer of the Baltimore Sun about Coach Caldwell. What'd you think?
Well, it's kind of like when the Ravens lost defensive coordinator Greg Madison at the University of Michigan. They were happy to see him go. I mean, they thought he did a good job, but they wanted Chuck Pagano. This seems to be the same thing. I don't take that much out of it as far as how Jim Caldwell is going to be a head coach for the Lions. We sat here last week. We thought I was going to be Wisenhunt.
We did.
I wouldn't say disappointed, underwhelmed by the hire, but I got to tell you, at the press conference, and let me preface by saying it means nothing. What these guys say at press conferences mean nothing, especially the welcoming press conferences. That said, he was professional. He seemed motivated. He said all the right stuff. The question is whether they're going to be able to translate all that right stuff onto the field beginning Sundays in September. That's the key, and whether they can get enough talent on this team to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
When you look at the comments of, or listen to the comments of Tom Lewand, when he said, if you thought we settled for Jim Caldwell, then you do not know Jim Caldwell. How do you read into that one?
So I was surprised they even admitted that there were two quote-unquote plan A's.
Right.
I give them credit for that. But they're not going to say that they settled. They're not going to sit there and say that somebody else was their first choice. They like Jim Caldwell. He fit their, criteria. It might work. Look, the history of this franchise, it doesn't make a difference what's going to happen. It probably won't work. But, you slide away all that stuff, you start from scratch, and you give them your support, and hopefully it'll work. I'd like to see who the offensive coordinator is going to be before we start going crazy here.
Right, that's the next question, Mark. Stoney, stay right there because we want to talk more with you in the next segment. But in the meantime, check out this play of the week. This is pretty cool. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Update. Decided to keep Stoney around because there's more topics I want to talk to him about, which includes Michigan State, Michigan basketball. These guys are on a roll right now, still undefeated in Big Ten play.
And there's this little game next Saturday.
Yeah, a little game
at the Breslin Center. Hopefully, both those teams will be undefeated leading into that game in Big Ten play. Let's start with Michigan. The way they went up into Wisconsin, they almost blew the game, but the fact that they are where they are right now, kudos to John Beilein. They're playing great. Stauskas has been phenomenal, and I never thought without McGarry they'd be able to actually be atop the Big Ten, or at least tied with Michigan State. I give them tons of credit for the way they've played. Derek Walton seems to be getting better. John Horford playing some good basketball as well. So Michigan doing some good things. The Spartans, they're doing great considering, Adrian Payne hasn't played the last couple of games. Get him healthy. They have Indiana, and then they take on, obviously, Michigan. Michigan, by the way, has a tough game with Iowa this week before they take on Michigan State. That is at Chrysler. But Tom Izzo, it's weird. You watch him, especially his relationship with Denzel Valentine, he's all over him. It's like he knows that he can get away with him being the whipping boy, so to speak, and that's what he's done. And Valentine has played pretty well lately. He's actually been kind of the glue to this team with all the injuries that they've had. So both teams playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah, Saturday at the Breslin Center. Just in a little bit of a game, right, Stoney, and East Lansing. That's going to be a huge game, obviously. And since we're talking about basketball, Pistons, little Martin Luther King Day matinee tomorrow against the Clippers. Are you going to be there?
Maybe. I was there Friday night, which was a disgrace. The way they played coming off a 5-day break against Utah and the whole Trey Burke thing. And Trey Burke played great.
Oh, yeah.
And look, it'll still be a couple years before we figure out. I was not a Trey Burke guy for the pros, but I would have taken Michael Carter-Williams instead of KCP.
Really?
Because if you're going to need a point guard, he's taller, he's all that. However, that said, Burke may make Joe Dumars look really bad, and certainly Friday night was that because the Pistons were horrible and Burke was great. Now, we forget that game was so gross. We forget the Pistons actually won 3 of the last 4.
Right.
But there's still a mishmash. You have, with Josh Smith and Monroe and Jennings, some talented guys, but they just don't mesh together. And then that's been a problem. And tomorrow night against the Clippers, tomorrow afternoon MLK Day against the Clippers, who knows what's going to happen there. I just would love to see this team either make a big run again in the playoffs, or just get into the lottery, and hopefully, because their pick is protected 1 through 8, or else it goes to Charlotte.
Right.
And this is a strong draft. So they really, since they're not going to win a championship, there's really no gain for this team to really get to the playoffs.
How about the Stonehead of the Week?
Stonehead of the Week took place at Joe Louis Arena. 4 sets of eyes. The National Hockey League referees, and we'll take it, the 2 referees and the linesmen, gave the Wings a break. Cronwell's shot deflected, goes off the mesh, off Quick's back, in for the tying goal. Come on! You got 8 eyes, 4 sets. You couldn't see it hit the mesh? Stonehead! But the Wings will take it because the Wings have been playing some uninspiring, non-offensive hockey, but at least they got some goals, and hopefully when they get some injured guys back, they'll be ready to make a playoff run.
A bizarre goal, ladies and gentlemen, as usual. The one and only Stoney from 97.1 The Ticket. Catch him and Bill weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. on 97.1.
Stoney's Stonehead of the Week is brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding, the best mortgage banker. Call 1-800-LOW-RATE.